Well, with two federal by-elections to be called soon in Manitoba, we're seeing the Liberals paying a lot more attention to the province. Grit Chief Justin Trudeau has already visited the ridings of Brandon Souris and Provencher several times, and a Probe research poll finds that while the Tories are still tops in the province at 42% support, the Liberals have supplanted the NDP in second place at 32% support. The Dippers are down slightly to 22 points. Well, what does this mean for two by-elections? That's a good question for former Conservative Minister Vic Toews, who is in our Winnipeg studio. Good to see you again, sir. It's been a long time.
And you.
You know, when polls like this recent Probe poll came out showing Liberal gains coming largely at the expense of the Conservatives, do you see that making a difference in some of these by-election battles that will soon be upon us?
Well, I'm very skeptical about that poll. And I think that we've seen this kind of polling before. What we are noticing, however, is a collapse in NDP support in the province, and I can't attribute that to anything in particular. Perhaps it's malaise among NDP voters or otherwise just wanting a change. So I think that in the two by-elections, Provencher and Brandon Souris, my estimate would be that the support in a place like Provencher would be up at about 60-65% for the Tories, with the other three parties splitting the rest, and Brandon Souris would be at about 50-55% with the other parties splitting the rest. What I think we will see, in my opinion, the Liberals in Provencher coming up from third place to second place, probably at about 20%, and the Liberals coming into third or into even second place in Brandon Souris with about 20%, 25% as well. So I think that's basically what you're seeing. This is as a result, I think, primarily of a collapse in NDP vote, and we've seen that across the country in other areas.
You know, there is also the Trudeau effect that a lot of people have pointed to. I mean, say what you want about the guy. I know that you're not a fan. That's not a big secret to say that. But I mean, this guy gets mobbed in food courts, and he has that kind of popularity that can really help you electorally. That's got to be a concern, I would imagine, for the Conservatives, even in places like Brandon Souris, where the Conservatives typically win by fairly fat margins.
Yeah, he is a curiosity. I think people want to see the son of a former prime minister. But I think, let's take Brandon Souris in particular, the candidate. If they were really serious about Brandon Souris, and that's got to tell you a lot about what they view Brandon Souris at, they import somebody from Toronto. You know, his background primarily is with a punk rock band called,
a name that cannot be said on television.
I guess I can't say it, but Manure from Hell, and it's more explicit than that. Yeah. And I think that most of the farmers there don't need any more manure from a politician. What they want is jobs, economic development, and safety in their streets. That's what I heard in Provencher. That's what Brandon Souris is all about. It strikes me as really curious that they would have rejected a candidate like the mayor from Killarney, who might have had a little more credibility as a Liberal, to bring the Liberal Party out of fourth place in Brandon Souris to a little higher. So the Probe poll, I think, we see these kind of polls coming out, especially published in your competitor, the Free Press in Manitoba. Once they're tired of the NDP, then they go to see if they can support the Liberals in one way or another. But I can't make any further comments about polling.
You know, just political strategy, there's an area where you have a fair amount of experience given all the elections that you won. It might not actually be a bad thing for the Conservatives if the Liberals do see their fortunes improve in Manitoba, because primarily you would expect that perhaps more of their voters would be coming from those people who are used to cast ballots for the NDP. Some of those tight races in Winnipeg, say in 2015, or the Winnipeg area, might actually end up going in Tory favor if the Liberals and the NDP split the vote.
Well, Here, I'm sorry, I'm just having a bit of problem here with my earpiece, but I'll get that straightened out shortly. Yeah, I think it will certainly benefit a candidate like Lawrence Toews in Transcona Elmwood, who won that riding very narrowly. What it will do in other ridings, I'm not exactly sure. Shelley Glover, the minister, won quite handily in what used to be a Liberal riding. Rod Bernouge, in what used to be a Liberal riding, won quite handily there in the last couple of elections. So I don't think, the Liberals and the NDP switching positions here, which is essentially what is happening in Manitoba right now. And it's midterm in a government too, you have to understand that. Sure. The full general election is quite a number of years away still. So I don't think this is particularly indicative of what's going to happen at a general election. But I would see a guy like Lawrence Toews smiling at the collapse of the NDP and some votes going over to the Liberal Party. I think the only time that Bill Blaikie ever came close to losing is when the Liberal vote really surged, and that is a concern, especially if the Conservative vote remains relatively strong, which is the case. So, but as for the two by-elections in Provencher and Brandon Souris, I would never want to see a candidate become complacent. I aimed for 70% in the last election, to win 70% and to put the Liberals into third place. We accomplished that. They had about 5% of the vote in Provencher, and the NDP came up to 18%. I think you might see that flip in this. So, and I think similarly you're going to see something like that happen in Brandon Souris. But the candidates are good candidates, good quality candidates, know their ridings, and they'll do a great job.
Certainly bears watching. Vic Toews, thank you.
Thank you very much.